So my plan for this video is to basically show you every aspect of my current solo car camp setup. Now to do that, I think what I'm going to do is to add chapters to the video description, because then that way you can chop and change around the video to see whatever bits you want to, because I think it's going to be a slightly longer video than normal. And the starting point has to be the car itself. Now I have a 7-seater Vauxhall Zafira, and that changes from a family car into this. Now I do remove the headrest when I'm putting it into car camper mode, mainly as this means that the seats are able to fold down flat, and more importantly later on you can see how this means I can access this space for storage. I also pull the front passenger seat forward, as this gives me a little bit more room when sleeping. Now the reason why I choose to sleep on this side primarily is that I don't want to have to move the driver's seat in case for whatever reason I need to leave during the night. But the good thing is that I'll show you later is how easily the bed can move from side to side, and actually even if I'm sleeping behind the driver's seat there's still enough room for me to lay down properly. Now for me at the moment I'm actually using this folded down chair as my seat when I go car camping, but that's because I've still got a bad knee. Previous to that I would just sit on the floor and do everything there. Now what never ceases to amaze me is just how spacious the back of the Zafira is once you're all set up into car camper mode. I often describe it as my car camping cocoon. And the final thing to show you as far as the car is concerned are these handy little shelves that you have in the back. Now these are perfect for car camping, as is this little side shelf thingy you have on the seat, which is basically right next to the bed, so good for putting your glasses in and stuff like that. Actually, one last thing, whenever you're in the back of your car camping, you always misplace your keys. So what I do, I simply hang them up here, and that way I always know where they are. And should I need them during the middle of the night, which I never have done, then I know exactly where they are. Now blackouts are a majorly important part of my setup, mainly because I want to be able to park up anywhere, put my blackouts on, turn my lights on, and then no one will know I'm inside. What the blackouts basically do is that they make my car just look like any other standard parked up car, because at the end of the day, red is actually a perfect stealth colour. So my window covers were homemade, quite simply using cardboard and then covering this with weed fabric and strong black tape. The secret here, I learned afterwards, is to oversize the cardboard, as I found it enables a much better light fit. What I've also done on the back windows is put Velcro on the windows itself to really hold the blackouts on. Now on the rear passenger windows I don't have Velcro, but I do use these slightly knackered looking window mesh covers. Now these are good because what they mean is that when you're parked up during the day you can just put those on and it gives you a little bit of privacy, and I do think to some extent they help to hold the cardboard blackout on, albeit I don't think they necessarily do. And the final most important bit, and it's how I complete my car camping cocoon, is what I do in the central section. So to do that I've quite simply bought an extendable curtain rod. I've then cut 2 holes in each side of the fabric and then extended the pole into that. Now on the pole itself I now have one of these Amazon blackout curtains. Now it's important to know that actually the Amazon blackout curtains like this, they're not actually totally blackout, but much like the mesh window covers, I do find them useful for when I'm in the back of the car in the daytime, and I can just pull them across and basically it gives me privacy from the front so people can't see me. And how I make this blackout at night time, well, it's quite simply using this piece of blackout curtain fabric. I literally just wrap it around the top of the pole. I then have Velcro down the sides and down the bottom, and that pretty much holds it in place entirely. And what I found over the years is that this setup is essentially total blackout. So I can have all my lights on full blast inside and there is essentially no light bleed. Now my bed is equally quite a majorly important part of my setup. This is actually a sun lounger, so it has the advantage that you could use it outside when you're car camping as well as a bed. But what makes it super cool for this setup is the fact that it's so light, it's easy to move, and if you don't want to be all set up before you get to your location, it can quite simply fold away into the boot of your car. But what makes this sun lounger bed so awesome for the Zafi is the fact it clears the middle row perfectly. Then all you need to do is to put a piece of eBay custom foam on top of it, and there you go, one super comfortable bed which has tons of storage underneath, and I'll talk a bit later about what I use for my storage devices. And what I mentioned earlier is that because the bed itself is so light and unfixed, if you need to change sides of the car for whatever reason, it's as easy as this. And to finish it off, I have this little fitted sheet that goes over the foam. Well, it makes it just feel a bit more like a bed. And then I have, I think, this 3-season Van Gogh sleeping bag. And then in the colder months, I have this little blanket that goes on top as well. So power wise at the moment, I'm alternating between two different power stations. I have this one, which is an 1800 watt power station. With that, basically it can pretty much power anything. The only downside to it within this car camper is the fact that it is so huge and it does take up quite a lot of room. And this is why I've pretty much gone back to using the Allpowers 700, because at the end of the day, it powers all the same stuff the 1800 does that I use, but it is significantly smaller. And because of that, it's much more easier to maneuver when you're inside the car camper. So because the 700 doesn't have as large a capacity as the 1500 does, then what I'm doing pretty much at the moment is, you could say, conserving power. Now the main way I do this is by using my trusty old 24-hour thermos. I put hot water in this before I leave home, and basically it means that it takes a lot less power to boil the kettle when I use it, because I do have a lot of coffee when I'm on a car camp. And in addition to this, I also have my CPAP battery now. So that is good, because the CPAP did drain an awful lot of power from whichever power station I was using. And to really finish off my power supply, power conserving topic, I'm also using my little power packs to power little USB devices, but I'll show you some of those a little bit later. And the reason why I need these power banks is for my cooking and my coffee making. And to make my car camping coffee, I have this 600 watt travel kettle, which now I'm using the 700. I'm using that in conjunction, as I mentioned, with my thermos, just to save power. And then for my cooking, I have this rather awesome cooking appliance and this little rice cooker. Now this rather awesome little cooker is basically a frying pan, a steamer and a saucepan, and it has two settings, 300 watts and 600 watts, but to be honest, I only really use it on 300 watts. It's not often I use the 600 watt setting, but for me this cooker has been an absolute game changer as far as car camping was concerned. I did always used to use one of those little car camping gas things that everyone has, but for me it gave me killer migraines every time I used it, even with the windows wound down and everything. So I had to move away from cooking with the gas, and that's why I was so happy when I was given the larger power banks, because that enabled me to use these types of equipment. And something you've seen me using a lot more on car camps recently is this rather little awesome 12-volt rice cooker that I found on Amazon. Basically this has a little steamer plate in as well, so you can make an all-in-one meal with rice in the bottom and meat and veg up top. But what I've also experimented with once is actually using the rice cooker more as a kind of, what's the word, kind of like a hot pot. So I chucked everything inside it, stuck the lid on, and it did work. Now this draws about 120 watts, so it is quite an effective little means of low wattage cooking as well. And the last two things to mention in the cooking section is basically what I call my car camping kitchen, which is basically a wash bag, but it has a hook on it so you can hold it out like this, and it holds pretty much everything you would need. And then we move on to my rather low-tech car camping fridge, which is essentially just a little cool bag and a freezer pack inside it. Now this works perfectly for me because I don't do more than 24 hours as far as a car camp. Well, I've done it once or twice, but as a rule of thumb, I only need to keep something cold until the morning at the very latest. So this does work perfectly for me. And the most recent addition to my car camping kitchen is this rather cool coffee grinder and cafetiere. Basically means I can just have really nice coffee in the morning for breakfast. And actually, on that note, I haven't mentioned this. I use these little UHT milk sachet thingies for my car camping. Now, I get these off of Amazon. They're relatively cheap, but what I would say is if you're going to buy these, don't buy massive packets because the shelf life on these isn't always that good. So my storage solution is nice and simple. Basically, I use these vegetable boxes that you can get out of a supermarket. Now, under the bed, I can put 2 of these quite comfortably, and there's still room at the end of the bed to put stuff like my cookers and my little car camping kitchen and stuff like that. But in addition to the underbed storage, I also have the room I mentioned earlier behind both chairs, which is easily accessible and actually holds quite a lot of stuff. And my most recent thing that I've bought for storage has been this rather cool little kind of wire tidy bag. Basically, I have a lot of wires and camera stuff when I go car camping, so it's a very cool little wire tidy and camera stuff tidy. Security is rather limited for my car. I don't have an alarm, which is useful because that means it doesn't go off when I lock the doors, but all I actually have is these, or are these, which are basically my dash cams. So I have one out front, one out back, and one inside. And condensation pending, I can actually look outside when I'm inside the car, and that's one of the reasons why I need one of the little power banks, because that powers it. But what I want to do in future is, if I actually remember to take my tablet with me on a car camp, then basically I can leave the cameras permanently turned on, so at any given point I can just look over and see what's going on outside, as long as there's no condensation. Now, I'm saving the best till last here, but my toilet is actually the most single important part of my car camping setup, because if I didn't have this toilet, then I wouldn't be able to park in any of the places that I go to. And to be honest, I don't think car camping for me would be massively possible without an in-car toilet solution. So this is mine. It is a Thetford, and yeah, it's a toilet. I don't think I need to show you how it works, but yes, absolutely essential as far as I'm concerned, because I am not dependent on public toilets. I can go whenever I want to, and the good thing is if it's peeing down outside, then basically with this, well, you don't need to go anywhere. Now, something I've just mentioned is basically condensation, and as far as car camping is concerned, condensation is quite a massive problem, really. Now, I'm currently looking into condensation. I will be making a video shortly on it, but basically I have wind deflectors or rain deflectors on all my windows, so that means I can crack my windows and it enables a bit of ventilation. Now, that by itself for me doesn't solve condensation, so then I tried these silica gel rechargeable condensation bags. They didn't do the job completely either, although was slightly better. But what has appeared to solve it for me is also doing the cat litter in sock trick. So on my last car camp, I had my windows cracked, I had the condensation bags, and I had the cat litter in sock, and that actually resulted in almost no condensation on the front windows. Okay, so now we are entering into the any other business section of this little video, and basically that is where you will find things like my car camping table. So my main table is actually a laptop standing table, but it is fantastic as far as car camping is concerned. It's the perfect size, it's adjustable so it can go up and down, but importantly it folds down completely flat, so you can put it down the side down here, or well, storage isn't a problem really because it is flat. And I also have this little headrest table. Now I don't use this an awful lot, but it has proven useful from time to time for things like putting a coffee on or putting my glasses on. It's just a useful thing to have, and they're relatively cheap. And probably the last thing for this any other business section are my car camping lights. These were both items that I was given a long time ago now, but they still work fantastically well, and they are super bright and keep the car totally illuminated. But they also have quite nice low settings as well, so when you just want to chill out, put on a orange light and just relax in dull illumination, well, these are perfect for that as well. And the final thing I suppose to show you is how I keep warm when I'm car camping, albeit now we're coming out of the colder months. But basically my how I keep warm setup is quite simple. I have a heated fleece, I have heated socks, and I have a USB blanket that I've recently bought. And I tend to find a combination of all these things works wonders. But in addition to all these items, I also do the low-tech method of just wearing layers. And ultimately, when I'm in bed, my sleeping bag and the blanket, when it's cold, do a fantastic job. And actually, conversely, how I keep cool when it's hot in the car, well, I just have a standard USB fan, although I seem to be very unlucky with USB fans. Most of them break within days. So the one I've currently got, well, that seems to be working well at the moment, at least. Now, if you want any further information on any item or any aspect of this video, then basically I'll put a selection up here of some of my other videos. But basically, if you go into my kit testing playlist or my car camping setup playlist, then essentially you will find much longer versions of, I think, pretty much everything you've seen in this video and more, because say this has only been my ultimate current solo car camper setup. We also have a couple setup, and I have different solo setups for different situations, you could say. But as always, I hope you found this video helpful, and until next time, take care.